Hi guys, and welcome back to the Academy of Historical Fencing. You're joining me here somewhere slightly different, which is my dining room, and that is because I want to talk about these two posters that you see before you, or behind me, which are from Angelo. We've been talking about these a bit recently, including the sort of 10 lesson structure and things like that. So I want to show you the posters, and I want to show you how you can get them as well. And I'm also going to be talking about our AHF Sabre workbook, which is based on these posters and the 10 lessons shown in the Roath treaties of 1804. So this is dealing with the Napoleonic infantry sword, sabre, broadsword and spadroon. And recently we sort of moved on to using the Roath 1804 treaties, and the interesting thing about that is that it adds on the 10 lessons of Taylor. And although they're nice, they're only shown in text in the 1804 Roath, and therefore there are a lot of unanswered questions as to exactly how certain things work, footwork and all kinds of things. Fortunately, a few years before that, Angelo produced these posters that you see behind me, and they go through the same 10 lesson structure which were introduced by John Taylor. They're not identical, but they are generally the same. 6 of the lessons are identical and the others just vary a little bit. So you can use these posters to extrapolate information from to a large degree and just make certain adjustments for working from the Roath 10 lessons. And the nice thing about the Roath 10 lessons is, one, if you're working from the Roath treaties, Art of Defence on Foot, is you want to know how those Taylor lessons work. Two is that the Roath lessons involve thrust work, whereas the ones shown on Angelo only have cut work. So I would say the versions shown in the Roath text are just a better, probably more up-to-date, revised version, which includes just a bit more information. So there you go, the Angelo posters, published in 1798-99. They go through this 10 lesson structure. They also have a solo drill sequence, which is the top line. That's something we posted on YouTube recently, showing members of the Bristol Club going through the solo drill. That solo drill is really, really useful because it goes through the primary cuts and defences of the system. So it has a lot of information going in there. It's kind of like a Carter, if you like. And every cut you make is followed by a parry, which is the parry to the cut you've just made. So it's kind of building that muscle memory of you cut to a target zone and you've then learnt the parry that would defend that attack that you've just made. It also just has some good discipline and structure. You start in the slope swords position, as in sword on the shoulder, which is just a good way to keep everything safe, secure and uniformed. And goes through a really, really nice solo drill sequence. And then in the 10 lesson structure, you go through a number of scenarios that are kind of typical of a sabre fight, ranging from 4 actions in the first lesson up to, I believe, about 14 actions in one of the longest ones, which is lesson 7. So they vary a little bit in terms of length, but loads of good actions, and they build in some really good sort of military discipline and structure. And the thing we found introducing this system, again I've talked about it recently, is the discipline structure of always slipping, always defending against every attack, has improved people's footwork and distance work more than I've seen in the club in quite some time, in terms of improvement over a length of time period. So we've seen beginners have picked it up really quickly, and existing members have improved their footwork for sabre and broadsword really effectively and really quickly. Now, the difference is, if you work from the old 1798 Roath Art of Defence on Foot, there's no explicit information on should you slip at every single parry. In fact, the suggestion or implication is that you wouldn't, because he mentions it in certain actions, like when you go into Guard of St. George, that you slip the leg back. That's moving the front foot back to the rear position. So the implication is that you don't slip on every parry. But if you move on to the 1804 and then use these posters to interpret, you can see that the slip is done all the time unless there's a very specific reason not to, such as when we lunge and we're encouraging a counter to the leg, so we stay in the end of the lunge position, which you'll see in the drills. That slip is something which you see in a lot of systems. You go back to sort of longsword and rapier, you'll see that kind of leg slip being done, but usually as a specific defence against a leg attack, as opposed to in this system, it's done as a defence against a leg attack and when you're making pretty much any other parry. And the reason for that is that it's really encouraging defence, safety and security all the way through, because you know, if you only slip when you perceive a threat to the leg, then you can easily be deceived with feints and things like that. So the idea of the system is that it emphasises defence and safety all the way through. So loads of slipping. And we've seen that has led to a lot less double hits, a lot safer sort of striking, and overall an improvement in the fencing generally. Now, I don't think it's intended necessarily to force you to always slip on every action you ever do. I think it's just designed to build the muscle memory in that you usually do, unless you see some tactical advantage not to. And you'll see those sort of situations coming into the drill as well. But you should be slipping an awful lot if you're doing this kind of system. Right, so looking at the posters, you've got this one, which is your guards. Goes through 8 guard postures, which covers most of what you see in Roth. The only major thing is, I suppose, he only shows one hanging guard when Roth talks about Prem and a second hanging guard. That's not such a big problem. And you only see each of the guard postures from one angle. Now, if you go to our club website resources page, you're going to see a number of documents, including these posters, but also the AHF Workbook, that is going to go through this kind of lesson structure, but broken down really nicely with a load of extra resources, a load of extra aids, if you like. And particularly with these guard postures, I've added the other posters that Angelo had done in his books of the English officer, because that's a Scots officer with kilt and broadsword. And then I've added in the other posters that he did, nice prints of an English officer using a sabre with alternate angles. So it's nice, you're getting the side-by-side of Scots and English, sabre and broadsword, and different angles. So you're going to get to see a bit more than is just on that guard's poster. So that's quite helpful as well. Particularly in, say, hanging guard, is do you have the point across the body or in line? And that question is answered if you look at the workbook, because it shows both angles. Right, so these posters, I got them from a friend who had original examples that were a little bit tatty and restored them. And he has said that he's happy for us to share them as a club, at least these restored versions, no problem. Just if you do share them, and feel free to share them, please just add some credit for us as well, because it was our work that went into it. And they do work really well for printing. Now, the originals, this one was about 35 centimetres wide, and this was about 70 centimetres wide roughly, because they folded up into the original book. I printed these at A1 size, which is about 84 centimetres wide. So both of these have been blown up larger than their original size. This one marginally and this one substantially. But you'll get to see if you look at the original file that it works really, really well. So it's really nice and easy to read, particularly as some of the text is pretty small. So enlarging is quite useful and the quality is plenty good enough for it. The originals, in terms of their borders, are on the website, and also these adjusted ones for printing, because if you're going to print edge to edge onto standard paper sizes like A1, A2, A3, and it's A1 shown here, you're going to want the borders adjusted so that it fits scale-wise correctly. So if you see the ones adjusted for printing, that's what I've got printed here, and they've just gone straight to a professional print shop, printed A1, and gone straight into poster frames. And any professional printing company will do that. These just came off someone on eBay, £17 for the two, and you've got nice original artwork to work from. So if you want to make use of those posters, feel free, go to the website, and the AHF Workbook. You'll see we've added others as well. My basic rapier one's on there. Mike's work in progress, longsword and mezzo are also there. And the Sabre is the one that's had the most work put into it. And mainly because these posters are such a good resource. And I've adjusted them, the lessons shown on the poster here, to match the 1804 Roth text. So there's a breakdown of every single lesson of individual actions, then using the artwork from here to match up to Roth's texts, some notes that will help you along the way and some questions that you might have. There's also a section on the typical kind of swords that were used under the system and recommended in the system. So quite a variety of stuff. So I will put the link into the YouTube video. That links to our resources page. Feel free to use the workbooks and the posters. I do hope you enjoy them, and if you have any questions, feel free to post in the comments section. Those documents are going to be living documents, so they will be improved, and new versions are upgraded all the way through, sort of throughout the year. But But at the moment, the Sabre and Broadsword workbook is on version 4, and that is a good, solid, complete overview to using these posters and working from the 10 lesson structure seen in Roath. So I do hope you enjoyed the video. I think you'll see there's some quite nice improvements to a lot of people's fencing recently using this kind of structure. And yeah, if you have any extra questions, feel free to post it in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video.